This episode is sponsored by Gusto, online payroll and benefit software built for small businesses. This episode is sponsored by Game Time, a great way to get tickets to see your favorite artists live. You are listening to Nakedly Examined Music, a podcast about songs and songwriters. My name is Mark Lintonmeyer. My guest for episode 248 is Lande Hekt. She started in the British punk group Muncie Girls, which had 6 releases between 2011 and 2020, most of these EPs. She released her first solo album in 2019, and you're right now hearing perhaps her most popular song, Gay Space Cadets, from the third of those solo albums, 2022's House Without View. She's just released her 4th solo album, and we'll be discussing Coming Home from that new album, Lucky Now. Then we'll look back to 80 Days of Rain from her 2nd solo album, Going to Hell, in 2021. Then back to Learn in School by Muncie Girls from Caplan to Belsize from 2016. We'll conclude by listening to the title track to the new record, Lucky Now. For more information, see landehekt.co.uk. For more about this podcast, see nakedlyexaminedmusic.com. And to support the effort, getting you an ad-free feed and my episode notes, please support me at patreon.com/nakedlyexaminedmusic. All right, I will play a little bit of Gay Space Cadets from House Without a View 2022, just because that seems like your most downloaded single, your most streamed single on Spotify. We're going to get pretty quickly to the new thing, but do you want to say a little about the arc of your career, right? We started with Muncie Girls. We'll look back a little heavier, and then going solo while you were still in that, and then putting out a few albums here. Yeah, any sort of introductory words about the state of your career at this point?
Yeah, I think you've summarized it slightly. I started a punk band when I was a teenager, and we ended up doing quite a lot of tours and gigs and festivals and really fun stuff. And I was really lucky to be able to meet so many lovely people through the punk world. And then I started getting more kind of into indie music. And then I started recording my own solo music in about 2019. And yeah, it was just after Muncie Girls were kind of at our busiest. As that kind of quietened down a little bit, I started doing a bit more solo stuff. And then COVID got all weird and, things got very shaken up and we weren't able to tour as much as we used to. And things changed for everyone, I guess. And then I ended up kind of being just me, quite isolated, ended up writing a lot more solo music. Yeah, the single that you said, Gay Space Cadets, is off my 2nd solo album. But I did do an EP before that. So I've released quite a lot of music since, we started Muncie Girls when I was 17, and I'm 32 now, and haven't really done much else in that time other than playing bands. So it's mostly all that I know. I
noticed actually by far the most streamed thing, I didn't compare your solo to the Muncie Girls, but of Muncie Girls was the Ramones cover of Pet Sematary, which I was wondering, did that actually get in the soundtrack or something? No. It's just, do you know why that hit? Was it included on a compilation somewhere?
We did record it just as a kind of B-side for one of our 7-inches around the time that we recorded our first album. It was quite popular when we used to play. We played a lot on the mainland in Europe. In Germany and Belgium, people used to shout for us to play that song. I think in those countries, late career Ramones were really popular. Over in the UK, it's more kind of the classics that people want from Ramones. And I'm not saying Pet Sematary is not a classic, but yeah, they just loved it. So it wasn't on a compilation or anything in particular. I think it's just probably, to be honest, with streaming, people are probably just searching for the Ramones song and then that comes on afterwards. That's often a thing, isn't it?
Sure.
So I wouldn't like to say that there's some reason why people have listened to that. It's probably just because they're kind of intrigued to hear some kids in Devon butchering a Ramones song.
In Devon, not in Muncie, Idaho, or Muncie, Iowa, whatever it is.
Muncie, Indiana.
Muncie, Indiana. I was one of the eyes. Here, I'm the one in the States. I should know this. Well, we're going to let's play the new song, Coming Home, from your latest album, Lucky Now. Yeah, you want to say a few words about this before we play it, and then we'll talk in more detail?
Coming Home is one of my favourites, actually, off the new record. And I wrote it quite near to the kind of recording process. Often when I'm making an album, the songs kind of span over a long time. It's not like I write them all in a week or something. So this one was actually written quite close to when we went to record it. And it's just about kind of the feeling of, I mean, I did write it around the time that I realized I was going to be moving back to my hometown, which I did for a year and a half. Basically about that feeling of, I mean, I'm really ruining the song here lyrically, just quoting right out of the song, but the feeling of when you are driving home after being away and you're coming off the motorway and you just feel it's almost like a profound sense of familiarity as you're entering your kind of home turf. And it made me think of the kind of early days in my old band Muncie Girls. We used to go on tour for quite a while, a few weeks at a time. And it was really the first time that we would have been away, I guess, without our families or just away from home for that long, like not really done much of that before. And you're with your mates in a van or a little car and you're all bundled in and you've been really uncomfortable for weeks and you're coming back and you know that you're going home. And we just had such a good feeling. We'd always get, a little drive of energy just before we'd get back. So it kind of made me think of that.
Coming off the motorway, I know the quickest way to go. Driving by, play the game, the first to see someone we know. If you stand on tiptoes, you might see over the hedgerows. If you got a keen sense of smell, you can breathe it in. That's coming home.
Song made me think of the Robin Hitchcock Globe of Frogs album, the concluding track on that. It's called Flesh Number 1, parentheses, Beetle Dennis. And he actually has Glenn Tilbrook from Squeeze harmonizing him on that. Are you familiar with that tune?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I don't know at all.
I'll just refer.
I need to check it out.
It has da 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 da, but that's there's nothing. And also, I was just thinking the way that you got the harmonies, the parallel octaves locked in, that has a very squeeze. That was their signature tune. Yeah, I want to say a little about your vocal approach on this.
I'll have to check that out because it's funny when you coincidentally write something similar to something that you've not actually heard before. But yeah, with this song, I'm singing 2 of the harmonies, and then the low harmony is sung by my friend Sam Bedford, who I've sang with a few times before in the past. And he's in a band called Perfect Binding, who are wicked, so you should check them out. He's just got an amazing kind of deep voice, and it really lends itself, I think, when we're singing together, to have the kind of octave break between us. As you do, you end up in the studio kind of layering vocals. It almost gives a bit of a kind of group effect. But also that kind of ended up working because it's how I said before, the feeling of coming back and you're with your band or you're with your group and you've been on a trip together.
Sure.
And I know it's probably not something that everyone has experienced before, but it is quite a specific feeling. So I think it's with the vocal layering has kind of captured the idea that started the song in the first place.
The lyrics are universal enough. You don't talk about, coming off the gig or, any of the specific stuff.
Yeah.
So I think most people can identify with that. Although the color of the bathroom and the floral pattern tiles, that sounds like, wait, you're already home or you're anticipating home? Like, I was just wondering why that line there.
I actually think that's more about when you're away and you're staying in people's houses and you're kind of a bit disorientated by the end of your trip or your tour. And most of the touring that I've done is DIY punk touring, like sleeping on floors, sleeping in venues often, and just, taking little bits of comfort where you can. But just generally, sleeping in hotels is something that I've only really done in this post-COVID thing where I've had to. Mostly it's staying with people. So yeah, that lyric about the colour of the bathroom and the floral pattern tiles, I think is more about, I don't know, you're kind of sleeping in someone's house. You never even met them, let alone been to their house, and you're kind of in the middle of the night. There's people all over the floor. You're trying to get to the bathroom. And yeah, it's those kind of feelings. They're quite strong, I guess, when you're recalling them.
I guess I should put this in context because I jumped right to the bridge. So, I mean, you've got this nice coming home group vocal verse, and we go straight into this little, in fact, let me insert the little guitar lick. So that we've got that as a transition, a sort of Smith's little thing. Any thought about, is that you doing the lead there?
Yeah, all the instruments are played by me. Yeah, I really liked that riff. I actually wrote it on a nylon string acoustic guitar, and it sounded really different, obviously, with it being now played on an electric guitar with like quite a lot of effects on there. But that kind of fast strumming and it's like a kind of 2-note chords moving around. So it's that kind of arpeggiated guitar. I hadn't thought of the Smiths, but I guess now the way it's come together, the kind of unavoidable does sound a little Johnny Marr, I guess, but played a little bit shambolically.
I'm hearing something in the lower end of that. Were you using an octaver on that guitar, or it's a second guitar, or? Thank
you so much for hearing that, because that's such a nice part in the record that I really enjoyed tracking. But that's actually a baritone guitar, so it's kind of, I simplified the line and played it right down the bottom end of a baritone guitar. So again, using that kind of the space with the octaves and everything, it creates almost like a similar effect, I guess. But yeah, it's relatively rare. I love baritone guitar, but it's relatively rare that I use it in songs. If I do, it's usually just quite small parts, like it's quite subtle.
So one might expect you do that little thing, and then we come in with another. Do you call the beginning the verse, or is that just the refrain?
The begin. I guess it's the chorus, but yeah, it's not a traditional song structure, traditional pop song structure. So
yes, this is exactly what I wanted to point out. So right, that you go from that into, we're just going to have an 8 count of just strumming the acoustic, and then go into this spacey part. Yeah, so this is a psychedelic furs or something. The open chorusy guitar. Yeah, where did this come from? Why this now?
I think I actually might have wrote these two parts separately, like in separate sittings, without the intention of putting them together musically, but it just somehow worked. Because actually, I think the thing that you're noticing is not just the fact that it's a kind of chorusy guitar, but in a big way, it's rhythmic change. So that whole section, just the rhythm changes massively. And when the drums come in properly, it changes to a kind of like double-handed 16 beat. It really picks up and it's super rhythmic. And then when it comes back out, it goes back into that kind of halftime chorus section. So I guess this is one of these songs that it either works or it doesn't, where you put songs together. And it wasn't kind of in the sense of, oh, I need more songs for the record, so I'm going to chop bits up and put it together. It was more, oh, it actually really weirdly works. But I think that it's on the edge of feeling jarring because it is literally from a different place. But I forced them together in a way that I think was quite nice. But it does affect the structure of the song. So it doesn't have that many lyrics, the whole song. And yeah, it's definitely got a different atmosphere. And that's partly why I ended up putting it at the end rather than having it at the beginning and trying to push it as its own single. Even though it's one of my favourite songs on the record, I think that it kind of works really well as a non-traditional, structurally strange and atmospheric song. So that's why I thought it worked at the end.
Yeah, maybe it's that Ramon sensibility, but I'm seeing a lot of your stuff. They're very short, to the point songs. I've got a melody idea. Let's just play it. Okay, so we played it. Now we're done. Let's move on to the next thing. So that if it's gonna, the song we're gonna consider next is one where, well, let's just repeat that many times. But this one, let's take it somewhere else. Let's tack another thing. So yes, that bridge where you're not only melodically in a different place, but you are lyrically, literally in a different place. That you're back on the road in the hotel. Home is just a memory. My mind is doing circles. This is no longer in the car 2 miles from home or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I mean about it being disorienting, being on the road for ages. And it does kind of get a bit spacey and a bit confusing. Getting back to the feeling of nearly arriving home is so kind of grounding, and it feels, quite odd in a way.
Well, it's spacey, so there's a literal, I want to play the transition to get out. Just that you have this big reverb that's over the last line that just spills. Yeah, what was the process of mixing and mastering this? Did you send it somewhere? Are you sitting behind the person? Are you doing it? Are you fiddling the knobs yourself? What?
I didn't mix the record myself. So my friend Matthew Sims produced the record, and we both have a lot of alignment in terms of how we wanted it to sound. So it was quite a smooth process. And he's a really, really good mixing engineer. So he knows a lot about effects and sounds and layering, and especially kind of has a lot of the same, enjoys a lot of the same records as me. So that really helped. But yeah, I have quite specific ideas of how I want things to sound, but not in terms of adding effects, more in terms of kind of arrangements and layers and more kind of blatant levels of everything.
Sure.
For mixing itself, like the kind of rough and obvious and important parts will be kind of laid out together in the studio. But actually I went away and he mixed it himself. And then, there's a back and forth on how things are sounding and all that sort of stuff. But producing as we go is quite a joint effort on this record, and it really enjoyable. And I think for this song in particular, there are an incredible amount of guitars layered up, as you can kind of hear. But a lot of the, you're saying it's like really reverby and everything. A lot of it is actually to do with how many layers of instruments there are, like kind of naturally creating a lot of, filling a lot of the space and pushing the sound to its limits. There's also some guitar that's slow tremolo layer that if you isolated it, or if you removed it even out of the mix, it's in the chorus section, so it's in the outro there as well. But if you took it out of the mix, you would be so shocked at how prominent it is, but you don't necessarily hear it. And it's this kind of like constant noise building up this wall. And at first we were like thinking that's not really going to work. I mean, it sounds cool, but it's too much. And then when we tried to take it out, it just sounded worse, so we kept it in. But yeah, the process of this song in particular, there's so much layering, and it was so enjoyable to do. And I actually wanted to get that middle bit sounding like the Sundays.
Sure.
You know, in terms of how pleasant it all started sounding, I think it sounds a bit like Lush, the band, not describing it big-headedly. But yeah, I think it kind of almost went more into that shoegazy thing rather than the kind of indie pop thing. But yeah, I'm really happy with that song. It is one of my favorites.
Yes, I feel like you're pointing at the end of the song where, unlike the part that we just heard, which does have, I think, just a reverb that's introduced just to kind of get us to the next section, this big sludge that's in the last... Yeah, so it's there right from the beginning of that last... You've got the nice Sundays thing going over it, but you've also got the sludge so that you can have everything fade out until it's just sludge. And that's a very cool... It really takes its time to establish that at the very end of the song, that we only hear this distortion. And I assume this is a knob. This is an effect that the pitch is going down. This is not something that you can do on stage. Or have you figured that out?
I guess so. Like, honestly, I don't really remember all the little bits like that. Things can get a little weird in the studio and, you know, you're just experimenting as you go. So I'm not exactly sure how that specific sound is achieved.
In terms of your working with the mixer, this is not just something he brought to you, like, let's end the song this way. This was your...
We often let the guitars ring out, trying to get feedback, trying to get some crazy sounds so that we have a lot to play with in the mixing.
Let's stop and talk about our sponsors. I watch a lot of live music, and I'd like to see more. It's hard for me to keep up with everybody that's coming to Madison, where I am, to Milwaukee, where I can conceivably drive. But all these different venues, they've got little quirks about them. They've got their own logins, might end up in a queue. You might see a price, but then when you go to check out, it's a different price. I just want to get the stinking tickets. Well, I've been messing around with Game Time. You can go to the website, gametime.co, or get the Game Time mobile app. And it's not just music. It's got sports, it's got comedy, it's got theater. I can follow the teams, the artists, the venues that I frequent to make sure I don't miss anything. I'm seeing on opening the app here, AC/DC is playing this July. Right without clicking any further, I can see that I can get a ticket as low as $140. Which for that kind of show, I mean, how many more are they going to do? I click through, it shows all the different sections with the different prices labeled right there. And get this, on the mobile app, when I click one of the sections, it actually shows the view of the stage from that section. I click it, I check out. I've already created my Game Time account, so I don't have to do any additional logging in. Tickets are mine within seconds, right? That initial price that I saw included all the fees, and all Game Time purchases have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is also covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code NEM for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code NEM for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. I also want to tell you about Gusto. Gusto is how I get paid for my day job. It is online payroll and benefits software built for small businesses. It's all in one, remote-friendly, and incredibly easy to use, so you can pay, hire, onboard, and support your team from anywhere. In talking with my employer, who is a friend of mine, he told me that with all the different states that our clients live in, with all the different places that our employees who work remotely live in, that Gusto was absolutely essential in keeping all the different regulations, all the procedures straight. Gusto takes care of all that stuff so he doesn't have to worry about it. Having payroll, benefits, and HR handled by Gusto feels like having a clean desk and an organized inbox so you can focus on actually growing your business. For one monthly price, you get unlimited payroll runs. You've got automatic payroll tax filing, simple direct deposits, health benefits, commuter benefits, workers' comp, 401k, etc. Gusto makes it simple and has options for nearly every budget. This is the #1 payroll software according to G2 for fall 2025 and trusted by over 400,000 small businesses. And it gives you direct access to certified HR experts to help support you through any tough HR situation. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/NEM and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/NEM. One more time, gusto.com/NEM. Well, let's get the second song out there, 80 Days of Rain from Going to Hell, 2021. So I refer to this as a rhythmic drone song, not because there's a giant drone like we just heard at the end of the last song, but just because, okay, we've got our little melody thing, but it's just going to keep going. And that's kind of the point, is that it's a little maddening. And you talk about, specifically in the lyrics, it's about a maddening, repetitive, kind of boring, frustrating relationship. Yeah. Do you want to say anything else introductory about it?
The whole record I recorded just before lockdown. I was touring in Australia. I actually recorded it out there. And you're totally right. It's a very, very, very repetitive song. And I think even that riff is kind of like indie rock riff. It does have literally a drone note in it that is kind of repeated just over and over for the whole song. But it's funny. Yeah, it's a very simple musical theme on this song in particular, and like the drums and everything. It's very repetitive, very simple. It relies a lot on the kind of melody to keep it going. I still enjoy playing this song live. Not that I don't like other songs off that particular record, but you know, it is a fair few years ago now. So yeah, this one, I stand by it.
Even in that intro riff, You got the da da. Like, is that because you're playing it on bass, or that's the drone note that you're doing something slightly different on guitar?
That's just the guitar. So the intro is just the guitar, but it's in like a drop D tuning.
Okay.
So when the second chord comes in, or the second half of that riff comes in, you can hear the low D. It's just downstrokes on the guitar, and it's quite distorted. It does go on for a while, that riff.
And I think I had seen, you playing this live where you're using a hollow body. Is that what you're using on this? I
have like a Gretsch. I don't even know what you would call it. It's basically like a Les Paul, but it's a Gretsch, and it's called like a Jet or something, but it's a really nice one. It's a player's edition. But that's kind of what I tend to have used on all these recordings. I've had that guitar since 2018. It's been my main guitar. But live, I tend to, use either whatever I am given if I'm in a compromising touring situation, or I just use whatever makes sense, or sometimes I can't fit as many guitars as I would like in the car or the van, so I have to use like certain guitars. But I've played this song acoustic, I've played it, solo millions of times, and then with the band as well. But usually it would be on that Gretsch.
And in terms of picking the distortion sound, so you want the riff to come through very clearly. It's not supposed to just be a sludge. This is in fact the quiet part of the song when you're starting. Yeah. But yet it's got a little dirt on it. Is there a particular pedal you like? Are you using the amp sound? What are you using for it? Do you recall?
If I recall back here, I probably did use an overdrive pedal. And we were using some kind of Fender amp, maybe twin reverb or something. I'm not a massive fan of whole sections where the distortion is just a distortion. And especially with guitars, I am guilty, as with everything, of just layering things up. The general guitar sound on this record, and I've always kind of continued doing this, but it really comes across on this record. I'm playing the exact same riff in unison on an acoustic guitar as well. So there's that kind of slightly jangling and sparkling acoustic guitar, but it does get really tinny when you're listening to just like a distorted guitar and an acoustic guitar just hammering the same notes for this riff. But that's kind of the vibe of the record. It's very top heavy. It's got rocky bits, but it's also got jangly bits. And there's a lot of kind of tambourine and high end instruments and stuff. But it's that kind of blend. It's the way that the mix is working with the acoustic guitar and the electric guitar together.
And often it's not clear with a song. Was it lyrics first? Was it music first? With this one, it's very clear that at least something was written, if not these exact lyrics, something close to it with the guitar in hand, like because the riff and the lyrics are so tied together.
Yeah. To be honest, I pretty much write all my songs at exactly the same time. Mm-hmm. I have done it, but I rarely have a riff or a melody or an idea and then get the lyrics down, or the other way around. I don't usually have a load of lyrics and then I usually just feel like sitting down with the guitar and then it all comes out at the same time. That riff is quite easy to just keep playing until the song has completely come together. I think, if I remember rightly, I literally just sat down and wrote the whole thing. It's quite a simple song, so it wasn't hard, but I think that riff just came all at the same time.
You've got multiple ways of delivering the vocals over that. So the da 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 da, that really ties very close, whereas at 112,
I'll tell you one thing that I want before I'm 30. I wanna be in love with something that wouldn't hurt me. Are you gonna tell me to count to 10?
Yeah, just that there's an actual melody, that you're moving up and down, and that is a da 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 da, that you're not just singing straight along with it. In fact, the place that I downloaded the lyrics from labeled that as verse 1. Like, what? I thought verse 1 already happened. What? Again, how do you think of this in terms of verse and chorus?
You've picked two songs. Well, I've picked two songs here that are kind of non-traditional in terms of structure, which a lot of the time it's so unintentional. It's not like a song has to have this. Well, it probably does have to have the formula if people are actually really, if a lot of people are going to like it. But I just kind of write whatever comes out. And I think letting go of having to follow a structure is probably one of the reasons that I can write so many songs, because I don't restrict myself with like rules and stuff. I have a kind of rotating group of people who play in my band, so I do have to tend to teach people guitar parts and, you know, the songs on various instruments. So in terms of knowing what parts are called, is so useful for teaching songs and sharing songs. But honestly, nobody would agree, really. But yeah, I mean, I would surely call that the second verse, but because, like you said, the melody changes, so that actually doesn't necessarily work. And they're quite subtle changes anyway, so it's anyone's guess what section is what.
It seems like making the whole thing not seem monotonous by having this many repeats is just a matter of very slightly ratcheting up and down the energy level, which often seems like literally, are you hand muting while you're playing the chord, or are you letting it ring? And likewise, is the hi-hat closed or is it open? Like that seems like that's the up and down.
That's basically the extent of the variation.
As opposed to adding 4 more guitars, which it seems like on the new album you probably would have done if you were doing this song.
Yeah, it is very much just in the playing. There's a lot of like the kind of palm muting, which I guess I don't do as much of anymore since I've slowly moved more and more away from kind of punk sounds, or like a specific type of punk sound, I should say, because there is a little bit of punk on the new record. But yeah, I think it's basically just in the way it's played. I've never been much of a pedal nerd, and I've never relied much on effects live to kind of control like the dynamics of my playing. I am a big fan of just playing quieter if it needs to be quieter. There are different qualities to that, I guess. One thing to say as well about this song is that I play it in a totally different key when I play it live. And I often forget to tell people that when I'm teaching them the song. So they're like, yeah, I've played along to the recording and now we're in a band practice. And
so this is too low.
I've got it all wrong.
Or you raised it
this
up?
This is low, but then the chorus is high. So basically in the chorus in the recording, I sing a harmony, like an octave harmony above myself, and it's like really high pitched in a falsetto. When I play it live, because I've brought the whole thing up, whatever it is, a tone and a half or something like that, I basically just never sing that high bit. I just stick to the, it's more of a kind of mid-range, but it is more comfortable. And the thing is, because the vocals weren't cutting through, because it was all in the same frequency when it was as low as it was in the recording. So it did make more sense to push it up a little bit so that the vocals could cut through. But then I do lose that high-pitched harmony in the chorus. And it does sound quite different live, I guess.
I mean, is this part of the advantage, or in terms of getting rid of the punk backing, that you want to be able to sing in a more speaking range and not have to be, you know, when you're in a punk band or a hard rock band or something, you kind of have to be piercing through, especially in venues where they don't mix things particularly well.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I've had to kind of figure out in this new journey of playing gigs, because it used to just be such a thing that every song I wrote was like, yeah, in a quite a high range, and it was actually like exhausting vocally, because you're just competing with basically cymbals. You know, you've got low ceilings, you're playing in a basement or whatever it is, you're just hearing cymbals that are in the exact same range as my kind of slightly higher voice than, I guess, you know, some of the lots of men singing at those gigs. So I think a lot of the time I'm just competing with cymbals being really, really loud. And it's something that I've definitely had to figure out a new way of playing so that I can also just get across some of the more kind of subtle moments vocally that I would like to. And that, you know, these songs start off as solo songs, just me playing a guitar, often an acoustic guitar or nylon string guitar. And it's so easy to layer stuff up and just hammer it out live. But I think it's important for me anyway to, try and find a way to be able to appreciate some of the dynamics that go with it.
Now, I'm just really interested in this song in terms of how you control the insanity, that it is repetition, but you don't, you know, there's no big psychedelic section. There's a limit. Again, you're opening up the hi-hats and opening up the guitars and taking them back down. And it's more just the fact that it keeps repeating than, I don't know, if I were arranging this, I would probably feel the need to put some sort of, just like the manic reverb that you had in the previous one, like the big sludge, something to just indicate that your brain is frying here. But it works perfectly well without any of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's intentional, to be honest. I think it's just, like I said, it's just how it came out at the time. And because it's, I guess, got a melody that goes along with the guitar, you can kind of just get away with it. And also, like, by the end, you sang the same bit so many times. No one knows in the band how many times we've played the last bit. Everyone's looking at each other thinking, where are we? We've been playing this for ages. And then it always comes back down for the riff at the end. And that's quite a nice moment, I guess.
But you can't do it again. You can't do it again. And yet then it does it again.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's such a nice melody, and adding the little harmony on the I can't do it again, can't do it again. That it's still a happy song musically, I think, despite, I don't know, how are the darkness and the light warring in this in terms of the tone for you and how you're doing the arrangements?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's quite a familiar thing for me, is just to have like intensely negative lyrics with kind of quite uplifting moments of music. Seems to have been a theme over the years. Yeah, and it's definitely present on this song as well.
And lyrically, specifically, that it's not enough that we're bored of each other. When all your favorite animals die, the environmental catastrophe. What was your thought in throwing that verse in there?
Yeah, I mean, the whole song is about, climate collapse, really, because the song's called 80 Days of Rain. So it's about the idea that, there being 80 days of consecutive rain because of, that there's floods happening, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the backdrop to the whole song.
It's not a single metaphor. It is jamming two things together, that this is not a relationship song or an environmental song. It is both of them. They've
just come together. Yeah. It's not easy to explain how that happens in songs, but it just definitely does.
There's limits when you try to do this stuff with the metaphors that, by the time I'm 30, I want to be with someone who's not going to hurt me. Well, there's no comparable thing in the environmental metaphor, right? There's no... Or is there?
I don't know. You'd have to go to like poetry school, but you can link anything to anything if you want to.
We want to have responsible leadership at some point that recognizes that climate change is real. I guess that would be the. But that's
that's true. Seems the least they could do.
It's true, but it's not. But it's not emotionally poignant in the way that I keep getting in relationships that are bad for me, and I want to actually make a healthy choice.
Yeah. Well, it depends on where your politics lie, because actually it is more emotionally poignant.
Okay.
Like I feel like entire species of birds dying out is more emotional than...
Sure.
It's more reason to be upset than a heartbreak, I would say. But it depends on the way you're looking at it.
Well, and then I like when there are no fish left in the sea, that particular phrase,
that's how I linked
actually
it.
Has both of them together.
And that is called a double entendre.
Let's get the third one out there. Decided on only this morning. Learn in School by Muncie Girls, from the album From Caplan to Belsize in 2016. So we're going to hear the full-on punk thing. I almost hear The Who in terms of the drums are very amped up in this. The drums seem to dominate quite a bit, but there's a lot of loud guitar, and you were playing bass in the band at this point, right? Is that?
Yes. Well, this is kind of the crossover where I was playing bass live and some guitar in the studio. And then the next record after this, I was playing a load of guitar and guitar live. So there's a crossover, but yeah, I think I played bass on this album.
So yeah, you want to say a few words before we hear it? This is even more overtly political song. Not that many people, because maybe the lyrics are lower in the mix, they're a little drowned out. It might not be obvious, but...
To be fair, I think it's quite obvious, because at the time, in 2016, this was our first album, and the kind of whole album campaign was about our kind of political stance and our being quite on the nose politics in the music. But I think I was about 22 at this point. And this is the first song from this record, the opening track, and it's one of my favorites. And yeah, like you said, it's definitely a political song. It is quite on the nose. Like a lot of these lyrics, they're not looking for a metaphorical version of something, or they're not looking for people to be able to relate to it in their own way or anything. This is much more specifically, no, this is exactly what what I'm thinking about at that moment politically. And this song is just, I mean, you know, taking right out of the lyrics, it is about the things that you are not taught in school. And the reason why you're not taught politics in school is because going to a state school, a school where you don't pay, you're not going to be taught anything because they don't want you to know anything, basically, because that would put under threat the entire system in place. And I think if people were empowered enough to learn about politics, especially people who didn't have much money, then there would be mass organising and mass structural change from the ground up. And that's exactly what in the UK, it's exactly what they don't want to happen. So this is kind of like a real kind of head-on observation of that, I guess. And it's also, the chorus is, the lyrical content, I guess, goes just into how, you know, a lot of us feel comfortable being in the punk scene because we just feel valued and respected regardless of wealth and class. And actually, you know, there is a lot of value in people who didn't grow up with much money in punk. And a lot of people don't like the system of punk because if they came from a lot of money, they're not valued as much. So I think people can get together, like working class kids from, you know, various backgrounds, and just be valued on the merit of their kind of music, or just on the merit of them being like a decent person, and just feeling, really comfortable in that scene and just really enjoying ourselves. And that's kind of what that's the positive side of that song, I guess.
right? We don't even get a whole intro. We don't even da 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 da, and then the vocal. No, it's just let's play the riff once. And get right in there. So very, very to the point. I mean, that's the punk aesthetic. Yeah. Any thought about the arrangement of this? I mean, the whole thing it's still 3 minutes. It's not 1.5 minutes.
I would say it's definitely a punk rock song rather than a punk song. And it's quite pop punky anyway. The whole record is quite pop punky, despite me trying to make it not pop punk. I think it's kind of come out a little bit that way. But yeah, it's just not something we would have thought about that much. We just played music together all the time, and these songs came out exactly how they came out. We didn't spend any time discussing any of it because that would have just eaten into the time we could have just been productive making it happen, basically. So I think, yeah, it's just all the songs have minimal instrumental fucking around, and it's more just, yeah, get straight on with it. Quite powerful choruses, I guess. And it's like still actually quite an enjoyable record to listen to this day for me, because I quite enjoy the production. Like you said, the drums are really loud. I guess that's quite typical of the specific genre. And it also was our thing. Our drummer, Luke Ellis, he just really bashed the shit out of the drums, especially live as well. It's got elements that I still continue to stand by today, like there's a lot of acoustic guitar blended in with those distorted guitars, which is something that I liked it then and I still do it now. And that you can hear it here, actually. It's slightly chimey, despite all the kind of noise.
Let me play the second time the intro comes in. This is 124. So this time we at least give a second to breathe before the vocals come back in. I wasn't sure if there was even like some delay on the drums or something, because there's so much clattering going on and it's not all completely in time, such that but he's obviously, it's a very solid drummer. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure the drums are dry. He's doing like flans. Yes, I think. Okay. What you might think is he's just playing. He's a very, very, very good drummer and a very quick drummer. So a lot of those notes, your brain's having to keep up with him, I guess. And
for the most part, you're playing very straight bass, but then there's a few places where we're going to move it around a little bit just to change one section from another. I mean, do you remember how you're thinking in, when you're going to move, when you're not going to move? Or is this too long ago? There's a walking bass line in the choruses of this song. Exactly what I was referring to. Yep. That's just a kind of nice, the drums change, it all comes down a little bit and it's a chance to build into the chorus. It's also like the moment lyrically where it's kind of like a call to arms, trying to get people on board, and that lyrical moment is quite important, I guess, to the song. And so it's nice the way it kind of comes down and the walking bass line comes in just as things start to build into the chorus. Many of us, few of them, we're all thinking the same thing. It's just that no matter when. And again, a little breather before we actually get into the chorus there. You're entirely right. There's nothing subtle about the politics. This is a call to revolution, or at least an observation. It seems like this is not sustainable to have the many oppressed by the few. I mean, yeah, aside from it sustaining for many, many, many years already, I guess you just would hope that something will change. But things have got a lot worse since that, in the UK, since that song was written and since that album was written, and things have got like worse in a way that's like less easy to even say how it's worse, because it's so much worse and everyone's so much worse off and everything's so much harder. So it's quite surreal and sad to think that, we were kind of filled with so much energy for politics then when I was so much younger, and now it's a lot harder to engage myself because of all the kind of apathy and the feeling of wanting to freeze, because it's just a natural reaction. That's changed a lot as well. So you kind of have to really make an effort to become engaged in this period, I think. Well, even in this song, with your more political younger self, or more hopefully more forcefully injecting your politics into your songs, let's say that. Yeah. But just, yes, we feel safer underground, right? That the solution is not everybody, come on, let's have a revolution. This is all larger than us. Let's just do what we can control. It's not saying that don't worry about the larger issues. Obviously, you're worrying about it. But is the Safer Underground, is that a retreat in itself? As you were, it's not an apathetic retreat.
No, it's not as much a retreat. I think it's more just saying that, just appreciating the punk world and punk scene, and just showing that people who didn't go to a school where you're taught that you're going to become a politician or whatever, that there is value in yourself, and that there's value in kind of community, and there are spaces where you're going to be welcome, basically.
And what is your relation at this point with the potential of pop stardom? That there's nothing about, I mean, your songs could very well be. I was listening with my young 20s daughter, and she was then like, oh, you're covering this person. Well, you should also cover, this pop person and this pop. And like, you might be in a different sociological, who knows who, or who's going to end up hearing your music or something, but and certainly not as much budget as a Taylor Swift imitator or something like that, but it's at least in the same. What is your attitude toward the music business at this point is what I'm asking you. Is it's still a punk?
I've always come out of like a DIY scene, and as you said, I've never actually had a significant budget to work with, and everything's always been done on the cheap, and that's been a source of creativity as well. But I mean, to be honest, it's all that I've ever really known. I don't think I'm ever going to be in the type of circles where there's even any type of kind of comfort, really. Like touring is really hard. Recording is really hard. It's so hard to get the money together to support yourself to do those things. But it always has been. That's always been the way. Mm-hmm. You just have to really want to do it, and that's fine. And you're still very lucky to be able, I'm very lucky to be able to do it, even though I don't have the type of financial backing that would make it so that I could do it all the time. I still have to, do it some of the time. I guess it's like you only know what you've only ever known. And I love it. I love DIY music. I love bands that didn't have loads of money thrown at them that then kind of ruined their sound. I like pop music, but I also really, really despise a lot of pop music. And I really like DIY pop, and I like sonically accessible tunes. I like catchy music. I like lyrics that make you feel a certain way. I'm not avant-garde for the sake of it or anything like that, but I do really also like DIY pop. I just think it's a really special place in music. It's kind of so embarrassing to just be like, we're just going to make catchy pop songs, and we don't have any money, and we don't look like really chic, and everything's just basically budget, and it's all kind of very realistic and painfully realistic and down to earth, and I just kind of love that, and I always have done. And so I guess I will always probably be a DIY musician. In this day and age, you don't just come across a load of financial backing unless someone who knows someone, and you're someone anyway. I don't really know. If anyone knows how that works, you just let me know. Because it would be so cool to just have like 500 grand, buy your own tour bus, and buy whatever it is, they bring their own PA or something to a massive stadium and set it up for 5 days before the gig. I don't know. I just think the music industry is obviously completely fucked. It's a weird and dark place. But most industries, it's just a hyper capitalist place where a few people stand to make a massive amount of money, and loads and loads and loads of people who make music and who are painfully sensitive don't really make any money, and it's really exhausting and really sad to put art out all the time and for it to just be tough. But if you love it, then you love it. And so that's kind of the space that I'm in. And I also have just made all of my lifelong friends through music, and being able to play with bands that I love and not have a separation between I'm small and they're big or whatever. It's no, we're all small and we just love it. It's so nice. It's nice to be able to appreciate your peers and actually really just enjoy what you're doing. And I think that ultimately, as you go up and up and up, and you look at kind of the world of pop music or whatever, it's just the same as anything, I don't know, movie stars or whatever. It's just a weird space for rich people.
Yes,
It's not.
Yes.
it's not for us anyway. So it doesn't really matter. It's not really something that anyone I know thinks about that much, because it'd be a waste of time. I'm not going to look at all these pop stars and think, oh, one day I'll be like that, because that's not how I look at myself anyway, in terms of, oh, I don't think I'll be rich one day through any means, you know. I don't really want an amazingly fancy car because I know it's not going to happen. I'm realistic about, you know, things don't work in that way. If you're from a certain background and you're creative and you don't want to put all of your energy into making a load of money, then you're never going to have a load of money. So you might as well enjoy your life separately and just have a really nice time. And it's very special to be part of the DIY scenes and be able to know this many people is quite surreal, to be honest. And I've memorized too many people's names over my life, so now I never remember anyone's names because the first like 2,000 have been taken up, you know. It's
been kind of a pleasant surprise in doing this podcast that a lot of people, even, you know, those who were in the machine at some point, there's very little machine left, or it has really narrowed itself to, as you say, a very small number of artists but then the upside is it's not a machine that's spitting people out. That I recall XTC, one of my favorite 80s bands, was like in some interview, oh yeah, that's when I missed my kid's childhood, because like you were just expected, if you tour, that you have to tour all the time and you're supporting the record, and it seems like, you know, you have control over how much of your time, whether you can live an actual life with relationships. And it's like everybody that was a pop star in the 70s and 80s got divorced, like they almost uniformly, because like it was not a livable lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that is a massive benefit. And especially since after COVID, I think people have realized that it's not sustainable to just burn yourself out 24/7.
Most of the people I talk with on this podcast are much older than you. So, you know, you're fresh. I recall when I was about 28, it was either we're going to make it now or we're not. Like that there was sort of a really pressure, and you're just past the point where, okay, I understand this is what my career is going to be. I can sustain this thing. I don't know. Was there a particular point at which you felt much more pressure as to something is going to happen? Or did you always have in the punk world, like, oh no, this is the level of success. This is fine.
I think I've always been relatively cynical all my life anyway. And then especially being involved in punk, like you become quite jaded quite quickly. I always surpassed my first goals and my wildest dreams, like so young. I just wanted to put a 7-inch out more than anything. And I genuinely didn't think I ever would, because it just seemed so unattainable. And then, yeah, putting out records and stuff, and then managing to go on tour. I've never not been acutely aware of the fact that so many people still dream of doing that after years and then never even get to. So I think the idea that, you know, you have to become this mad level of wild popularity or something is kind of insane, because there's so many kids who would love to do what I am able to do now. And I'm so lucky to be able to do that it would be really, really annoying to not appreciate it. Do you know what I mean? You know, when someone has loads and they don't appreciate it and it's so annoying. I think I feel a bit like that. Like, I don't take it for granted, because it's crazy that even some people listen and like my music, and to be able to have access to people who are like-minded like me and be in a scene like that is just really incredible. But I guess, yeah, I've also just like not had too many kind of labels and managers and stuff who are like, you're going to be so big, and, you know, really, really kind of blowing smoke up my ass. That hasn't really happened, because I think people like that don't really last around us. One time when Muncie Girls were playing one of the big festivals in the UK, there was like a really greasy manager guy who was chatting to us and trying to, you know, wow us or something. And he poured a Smirnoff Ice. Do you have Smirnoff Ice over there? Sure. It's an Alco Pop. He poured a Smirnoff Ice into my pint of lager at a festival. He was like, like laughing in my face, thinking that I would just sort of neck it and then crush it, and then everyone would sort of smoke a spliff and then sign a contract or something. And I was so disgusted. I just remember thinking, I will never, like the level of disrespect. This pint was all my money. Like, you know, I've just bought a pint at a festival and I was about 19 or 20. I didn't have any money. And I just remember thinking, no way. These people are horrendous. They're actually bad types of people. And I don't ever want to be around that. It's such a bleak atmosphere. The backstage parties, they're not good. No one should ever want to be a part of that because it's just actually not good.
All right. Well, I feel like you've just added an extra dimension to the Learning School song that we discussed with that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, to wrap up here, I mean, it's been so fun listening to your tunes over the past couple of weeks. Lucky Now, the title track from your new album is what we're going to close with. Another very catchy one. Yeah, you want to say a little about it before we say goodbye here?
Yeah, this is kind of my favorite song, I guess, off the new album, which is how it ended up being the title track. I mean, I named the album after the song. Yeah, it's kind of the first song that I've really, really thought that is exactly what I wanted to write. And this is exactly how I wanted it to sound. And just like I was very pleased with myself after I wrote this song. It remains to be, I would say, my favorite song I've ever written. So there we have it.
All right. And then before we wrap up, what's the status of the next one? Do you have a load of 50 songs to choose from? What are we looking at? The next thing after this, are you already, what is the status?
You know, it's hard to say. I don't really make plans. If I made plans, they wouldn't really happen because a lot of them is just down to chances that come my way. But I would basically like to tour as much as possible around this record. And I would definitely like to record another album after this. But we will just have to see. I've written a lot of songs at this point, as we've examined. And so I don't know how many are left in there, but probably at least a few. So,
all right. Thank you, Lande.
Thank you very much for having me.
Do you look at your life like landmarks scattered across the map? An electric fire, an argument where you said things and you can't go back. Walking around my old life now to make sense of a changing scene. Crisp packet in the storm, that was you since you were born, and you know what you meant to me. For all the times you're on the road, you have let me down. If you wanna come home, you'd be lucky now. For all the times you're on the road, you have let me down. If you wanna come home, you'd be lucky now. An appointment, an embassy, a promise of sobriety, a single night when you didn't go to sleep. I was a tiny fish, don't know how I crossed that sea. Walking around my old life now to make sense of a changing scene. Crisp packet in the storm, that was you since you were born, and you know what you meant to me. For all the times you're on the road, you have let me down. If you wanna come home, you'd be lucky now. For all the times you're on the road, you have let me down. If you wanna come
Thanks so much to Lande. Delightful tunes and a delightful personality. Again, you can learn about her music at landehekt.co.uk. And she assures me that it is pronounced Lande, even though it looks like it's Lande Hekt. No, she is British. I have continued recording wonderful interviews that I hope you will hear by subscribing directly to the Nakedly Examined Music feed. The links to do that are at nakedlyexaminedmusic.com. My upcoming guests that I've already recorded with include Kavos Torabi, who's the current lead singer of Gong and has been in many other projects. And I just spoke to Bill Pritchard, another British singer-songwriter, I believe on the same label as Lande, but a much older guy, started in the 80s with very, very nice melodic tunes. As always, let me remind you, you can get an ad-free experience and support this podcast. Let me know that you want it to keep happening by giving me the smallest recurring donation through patreon.com/nakedlyexaminedmusic. I hope you're all doing well through whatever weird weather it's been happening where you are. Keep your ears open. Keep your hearts open. Keep being creative. Keep on musicking. Until next time, this is Mark Linton Meyer signing off.